What is your naughtiest confession you can share? Story 1. I met this guy in my intro to film studies class. We really hit it off during our weekly film discussion section, and I developed a huge crush on him. So I was thrilled when he asked me out a couple of weeks ago. To be honest, because this part kind of matters, he produces way more, let's call it romantic enthusiasm, than anyone I've ever dated. It's incredibly intense, and until recently had just been our little secret. I haven't told him, but I'm kind of fascinated by how, generous he is. After our time together, I usually head to the bathroom, and am just amazed, every time. Now here's where things got awkward. I was at his place recently, and after a particularly passionate afternoon, I had to rush out to make it to a game night with my friends. I did my usual quick trip to the bathroom, but I didn't have much time to let everything, settle. I figured it'd be fine, and just hurried over. So we're mid-game, ticket to ride, by the way, and I was totally dominating with the longest route, and I stood up to grab a drink. That's when the room went totally quiet. One of my friends looked at my chair and asked, "Are you okay? Did you spill something?" I turned around, and my chair was completely soaked. Instantly, I knew what had happened. I was mortified. A small part of me had once thought the idea of people knowing what I'd been up to was kind of thrilling, but in the moment, just pure embarrassment. Fast forward to the next time I'm at his place. I'm in the bathroom, and, just on a random glance, I notice something behind the mirror, a bottle labeled something like volume-enhancing supplement. It clicked. This guy is taking some kind of, enhancement formula. I didn't bring it up right then. I mean, I do appreciate his enthusiasm, but I had no idea this was even a thing. Is this common? I kind of want to ask him about it, but I also don't want to make it awkward. Still, I'm super curious. Story 2. Just got back from an adults-only cruise last week, and let's just say, if you and your partner are open to exploring new experiences together, it's definitely something to consider. We weren't sure what to expect going in. Our connection is already strong, both emotionally and physically, but we were curious. The setup is pretty unique. Each night, you can walk through different themed rooms, and couples are free to mingle, connect, and interact however they're comfortable. There's even a sign you can put on your door, "Take it easy," or "Welcome to the party," which sets the mood for whether you're open to company or just keeping things low-key. One night, we may have had a bit too much to drink and decided to see what would happen if we put up the "Welcome to the party" sign. While we were already being intimate, a woman walked in, and we welcomed her to join us. Then 2 men showed up, and things got very lively from there. In total, we had around 12 guests come through our room that evening, each one bringing a new type of energy and connection. And yes, we were always safe and respectful about everything. The next night, we explored one of the more talked-about areas on the ship, a space designed for anonymous interactions with partitions and small viewing windows. My partner and I decided to check it out together. He went around the room while I stayed in one area, and we both shared glances with other guests who were either participating or simply observing. The atmosphere was surprisingly supportive and welcoming. No pressure, no judgment, just curiosity and consent. Now, obviously, this kind of trip isn't for everyone. But if you and your partner trust each other, want to explore in a safe, open-minded space, and prefer a bit of privacy from your everyday life, an adults-only cruise could be a memorable experience. In fact, we had such a great time that we've already booked our next one. Story 3. I've been working as a male entertainer in the UK for the past 18 years. Most of my gigs are birthday celebrations and hen parties. That's what we call bachelorette parties over here. At some events, the guests are pretty reserved, happy to watch, clap, and have a laugh, but they keep things respectful. Other times, especially when the drinks are flowing and the energy is high, things can get a bit more hands-on. It's not uncommon for guests to get a little carried away. Once one person becomes more forward, the rest often follow suit. Group dynamics can definitely shift the vibe of the night. Now, I'm not saying this happens at every party, but let's just say, some stories from these events would probably surprise a few partners out there. Peer encouragement is real. Even the quiet ones often end up joining in the antics once the group gets going. Last week, I performed at a hen party where the bride was Korean, and many of the guests were from similar cultural backgrounds. At first, the energy was a bit reserved, but as the evening went on, everyone really loosened up. By the end, they were some of the most enthusiastic and fun crowds I've ever worked with. The whole night had a playful, high-spirited vibe, and everyone was just out to have a good time. Being in this line of work, you really do see all sides of people, from the shy giggles at the start to full-on dance-offs by the end. One thing's for sure, no two parties are ever the same. Story 4. I recently opened up to my boyfriend about something that had been on my mind for a while. I told him I really enjoy a more intense, dominant style in the bedroom. I want to feel completely taken, no filters, no polite holding back. Just raw, passionate energy. And afterward, I want the softness, the affection, the feeling of being cherished, because that balance means everything to me. I expected him to either make a cheeky comment or maybe dive right into the idea. But instead, he looked at me and said, "Only someone with no self-respect would want that, and I know that's not you." And I just sat there, kind of stunned. Like, wait, what? Part of me felt a little offended, but another part of me melted. I think he was trying to protect me from what he thought was a degrading label, not realizing that I wanted that exact contrast. That I wanted to feel completely claimed in the moment, but still deeply loved afterward. That being called those names in the right context feels like trust, not disrespect. It was oddly sweet, and honestly, kind of attractive. I could see he was trying to be respectful in the only way he knew how. But all I could think was, if only you knew how much your sweet, respectful girl wants to be your wildest fantasy too. Story 5. I used to be a musician, weddings, parties, rehearsal dinners, you name it. One night, I was hired to play at a wedding rehearsal dinner and decided to check in with the couple beforehand to make sure everything was set. The groom couldn't make it, so I sat down with the bride to go over the plan. She had clearly had a few drinks and was feeling the pressure of the weekend ahead. She declined my offer to take her home, which I completely respected, but let her fiancé know that I would keep her company while he was out dropping someone off. We ended up talking for a while, and the conversation drifted into more personal territory. There was a moment, a mix of nerves, chemistry, and impulsiveness, where things crossed a line. It was brief, intense, and then it all hit her. She pulled away, clearly overwhelmed with emotion. The tears came quickly, and so did the regret. I stayed with her, just listening, trying to help her feel okay again. When the groom returned, I kept things simple and said she was just feeling stressed and the alcohol had hit her harder than expected. To my surprise, they didn't cancel my performance. The wedding went on, and afterward, she messaged me to apologize for any inappropriate behavior. I responded with a light joke, something about offering music lessons if she ever needed them, and she gave a little smirk in return. We never spoke again beyond the occasional like on Instagram, but I still think about her sometimes. Not just what happened that night, but the vulnerability, the emotion, how complicated people can be in moments of stress and uncertainty. Life doesn't always play out in clean lines, and that night was a reminder of how messy and human it can get. Story 6. About 6 months ago, my partner and I started exploring the hot wife dynamic, something we'd talked about for a while but took our time easing into. Up until recently, our experiences were mostly limited to light encounters. Nothing too intense, just dipping our toes into the waters. But this past weekend, we decided to take things a step further. We connected with someone through a well-known community site for adventurous couples. Everyone involved had up-to-date health screenings because safety matters, and we all agreed on clear boundaries and expectations. We planned to meet in a public park just as the sun was setting. It sounds bold, but we picked a quiet, wooded area near the restrooms where we could have privacy without being completely isolated. My husband stayed nearby, keeping an eye on things, while our guest and I stepped aside for a little more privacy. There was something thrilling about the setting, the quiet evening, the anticipation, the feeling of being watched over but still free to explore. Things started slowly, with gentle touches and quiet whispers. It was intimate, raw, and surprisingly emotional. After a while, I knelt down to return the favor, taking my time, enjoying the moment. Just as things were heating up, we heard the signal from my husband to stay alert. We paused, shared a kiss, and waited for the coast to clear. Once everything had calmed down, we wrapped things up with a soft goodbye. I walked back to my husband feeling a mix of satisfaction, excitement, and closeness. Not just from the act itself, but from the trust and communication it took to get there. There's something powerful about exploring new parts of yourself in a relationship, when it's done with care, honesty, and respect. This was one of those nights we won't soon forget. Story 7. I've been reading stories on this sub for a while, and I finally decided to share one of my own. This happened about 5 years ago, not long after my divorce, a time that was honestly pretty rough for me emotionally. I was dealing with a lot, loneliness, uncertainty, and yeah, probably drinking more than I should have. One weekend, my daughter had a friend over for a sleepover. She was always one of those energetic, outgoing types, full of life, always in tank tops and shorts, just very confident in her own skin. That night, after my daughter had gone to bed, her friend walked into the living room and saw me sitting on the couch with a drink. She asked if she could try a sip of the scotch I was having, curious more than anything. The conversation flowed more than I expected. There was laughter, a bit of vulnerability on both sides, and a moment where things just shifted. One thing led to another, and we crossed a line that night. It happened a few more times before she moved to New York for college, and we went our separate ways without much fanfare. Now, years later, my daughter showed me a photo of her friend in a wedding dress. She's engaged, and the picture brought back a wave of memories I hadn't expected. She looked radiant, and yes, it stirred something in me. I found myself wondering if reaching out was even appropriate, or if those feelings were just nostalgia mixed with a bit of longing. I haven't acted on it, and maybe it's best left in the past. But I'd be lying if I said the memory didn't linger. Story 8. Something happened yesterday that I had to post about, and I nearly forgot. So, I live in a building with a front desk security guard who I chat with occasionally. Yesterday, he asked me if I had a 25-year-old daughter. At first, I was confused, but then he explained that a group of college-aged guys had come by asking for someone who matched my description, including my car. Turns out, I had met them recently during a night out, and while we were all a little tipsy, apparently they remembered my address better than I expected. They left a small box for me at the front desk, and inside were handwritten letters. Actual letters. I hadn't received anything like that in years. They were full of over-the-top compliments, saying I was unforgettable, that I drove them wild, that they hadn't experienced anything like our night together before. Honestly, it was a lot, and a little wild, but also kind of flattering. One of the letters even apologized if things got too intense when we were out near the parking lot. Yeah, it was that kind of night. I chuckled reading them. It was sweet in a chaotic, college boy kind of way. Anyway, I ended up texting one of the numbers they left. We've been casually flirting, and I'm thinking about inviting them over for a weekend hangout. Part of me figures, why not? I'm still planning to move soon, and life's too short not to enjoy a little attention now and then. That said, I will be making it clear that I'm nearly 40. I get that they're surprised, and it's nice to hear, but I'd rather be upfront about it. Still, it's kind of fun being the object of their obsession for a little while. Story 9. My friend Mark, not his real name, started dating a girl from the volleyball team, a stunning, athletic brunette with a toned figure and a big personality. He'd heard a few rumors about her past, and for some reason, decided the best way to find peace of mind was to test her loyalty by asking me to flirt with her. Yeah, I tried to talk him out of it, told him it was a bad idea from every angle. But he insisted, said if she turned me down, he'd feel better. For context, he thinks I have a certain advantage that might make the temptation more intense. Awkward, but I agreed. I knew she liked swimming, so I went to the campus pool the next day. Sure enough, there she was, in a sleek one-piece swimsuit that left very little to the imagination. Let's just say it was distracting. I jumped in the water to cool off, but after a few laps, when I got out, she was standing right by the edge of my lane. She glanced at me, then did a very deliberate double take, her eyes dropping for a moment before she smirked and walked away. I looked down and realized, yep, the wet swim trunks weren't exactly subtle. Later that night, she added me on social media. A few hours after that, she posted a close friend's story showing off a cheeky black bikini. It was hard not to think that post was meant for me. I liked the story and sent a casual message. She played it cool at first, acting like it was just a regular post, but before long she asked if I wanted to go swimming with her the next day, and even sent me a few bikini options, asking which one I preferred. So yeah, Mark's plan kind of backfired, I guess. Story 10. I come from a really protective family, especially my dad. Anytime a guy tries to get close to me, he gives them the look. You know the one, that intimidating stare that says back off. Even though, let's be real, he's kind of a softed deep down, cutie patootie energy if I'm being honest, lol. But because of him, my standards are sky high. He treats my mom with so much love and respect that I've grown up expecting nothing less. Emotionally, I'm good with that. But, let's just say physically it's a little frustrating. Grinning face with sweat. I've seen too many of my friends get cheated on, or end up with guys who can't meet them halfway, and honestly, that's another reason I've been turning people down. Not gonna lie though, it feels kind of powerful being that untouchable girl. I haven't even kissed anyone yet. But when I finally fall for someone genuinely, I already know I'm going to absolutely spoil him with love and affection. Emotionally, physically, all of it. Relieved face. I do have a high drive, and there are times, especially during certain weeks, where it gets really hard to focus. Even in serious settings, I find myself distracted. So I've found my own ways to channel that energy, especially at night when everyone's asleep. It's a private little ritual to ease the tension and keep my mind calm. Face with open mouth dashing away. All I hope is that when I do meet the right person, his energy and connection match mine. Someone who's just as affectionate, communicative, and yes, adventurous. I want us to be able to go deep emotionally and have fun. When I get married someday, I already know I'll have a whole backlog of fantasies I've been waiting to bring to life. It'll be intense in the best way. Maybe this all sounds a little dramatic or dreamy, but I don't care. I'm just a bit delulu and romantic like that. Story 11. I've identified as a lesbian since high school, and I've been in a committed, loving relationship with my girlfriend for the past 2 years. Our relationship is still a secret from my family, which adds its own layer of pressure, but we've made it work. We're close, we care deeply for each other, and until recently, I hadn't really questioned how I felt about anyone else. A little while ago, we went to a party together. She left early, and I decided to stay behind and play a few rounds of beer pong. I was feeling relaxed and a bit buzzed. The guy I was partnered with started asking me questions, some casual, some more personal, about my relationship. At first, it felt like friendly curiosity, but then he started getting a little more flirty. I didn't immediately stop it. I was in a good mood, and maybe part of me was just enjoying the attention. He stood behind me while I played, a little too close, and I could tell what he was doing. It threw off my focus, but I didn't move away. I even played into it a bit, half out of curiosity, half out of mischief. It felt strange, new, and honestly exciting. Before I really knew how we got there, we were in one of the rooms, kissing. His hands guided mine, and I was surprised by how much I was drawn in. Part of me kept thinking, this isn't me, I should stop, but my body wasn't on the same page. We ended up sleeping together. The experience was intense, different from what I'm used to. It wasn't just physical. It stirred something in me I hadn't really explored before. He expressed some preferences that surprised me, and while I hadn't encountered that side of intimacy before, it sparked something I didn't expect. Since then, I found myself thinking about it more than I thought I would. I'm still processing what happened. I care deeply for my girlfriend, and this doesn't undo the love we've shared. But it's made me question some things about myself, about my identity, my attractions, and how complicated desire can be. I'm not rushing to label it or define it. I just know that it happened, that it felt real in the moment, and that now I'm sitting with the afterthoughts, trying to understand what it all means. Story 12. My girlfriend, 24F, loves going out to the club with her friends. She always invites me, and while I don't always go, this time I decided to tag along. One of her close friends, let's call her Stacy, 23F, was there too. She's fun, confident, and definitely the life of the party. She tends to be very flirtatious on the dance floor, and it's honestly kind of entertaining to watch her energy unfold. That night, a guy at the club kept hovering around Stacy, clearly not picking up on her lack of interest. He'd walk away, then come right back, over and over. Eventually, my girlfriend decided to step in. Without warning, she pulled Stacy in and kissed her, right in front of me. It was clearly meant to send a message to the persistent guy, which worked, by the way, but it definitely caught me off guard. I knew my girlfriend was somewhat fluid in her attraction, but this was a whole new level. And well, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little turned on by it. I laughed and said, "All right, you two owe me for that," just teasing. But then something unexpected happened. They both looked at each other, smiled, and took turns kissing me. Next thing I knew, we were in the back of an Uber on the way to Stacy's place. I was in the middle seat, not sure what was happening, but not exactly complaining either. There was a lot of energy, a lot of chemistry, and a lot of laughter. It was playful, spontaneous, and surreal. What happened that night was something I never expected, intense, exciting, and full of connection between the three of us. The experience was less about shock value and more about trust, openness, and the unspoken understanding we all shared in that moment. Now, I'm not sure how any future night out is going to compare, but I do know I'm definitely not skipping club night this Friday. Story 13. This one's from about a year ago, but it still crosses my mind way more often than I'd like to admit. We were in class watching one of those long, dragging documentaries. Lights off, everyone half asleep, and the bench we were on was packed. I was squeezed between classmates, sitting next to my guy best friend. We've always been close, and maybe a little flirty. He had this habit of accidentally brushing up against me, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice or mind. At one point, he leaned over and whispered, "I'm so bored." And for whatever reason, I whispered back, "Want me to help?" Still don't know what possessed me to say that, lol. He gave me this smirk and said, "I don't know, you tell me." Next thing I knew, his hand was resting on my thigh. I froze for a second, but I didn't stop him. He slowly moved his hand up, and I gave him a look like, "Are you serious?" but didn't pull away. He leaned in closer and gently pulled me toward him. Then his hand slipped under the waistband of my tights. I could barely breathe. I was trying so hard to act normal while my heart was racing. His touch was slow, confident, and somehow more intense because we were surrounded by people. I was a mess in seconds. Then he took my hand and placed it over his lap. My brain short-circuited. I started returning the gesture, discreetly but definitely not innocently. We kept going like that for what felt like forever, completely unnoticed, or maybe not so unnoticed. I swear someone glanced back, but I was too far gone to care. That day turned into a pattern. Every ride home, every quiet moment, we'd find new ways to press the limits. It became this secret rhythm, quick touches, teasing glances, whispered plans. We never went all the way, but it was intense. Addictively so. Sometimes, after school, we'd stop at his place for just 15 minutes. His hands were always on me, under my clothes, in my hair, pulling me closer. It felt like this hidden world only we lived in. But now, it's just a memory. He's with someone else, and it's like it never happened. We never talked about it ending, it just stopped. And I don't know what to do with all these leftover feelings. I miss the thrill, the connection, him. That classroom moment, it changed everything. I've been chasing that feeling ever since. Story 14. I've never posted on here before. Actually, I've never posted on any sub, but after last night, I just had to get this out. I'm 21F and happily married to my husband of 3 years. We're incredibly close and comfortable with each other, and over time, we've been enjoying a bit of exploration when it comes to the more adventurous side of our intimacy. He works as a lineman, which keeps him busy most of the time, so when he finally had a night off, I wanted to make it special. While he was out running a quick errand for his parents, I sent him a playful message. "Maybe I should be tied up under your desk while you play your game tonight." He's a big Call of Duty fan and usually plays with a few friends online, so I figured why not spice things up. He was clearly into the idea. When he got home, we finished up some chores and then made our way into the office. He started his game while I distracted myself with a bit of light reading. After a while, I slipped away to change into something I knew he loved. His favorite lace nightgown, a matching bra and panties set, and just the right amount of perfume. When I came back, he clipped leather cuffs around my wrists and secured me to his chair with a leash that connected me to the base. I couldn't move more than an inch or two from where he sat. It was intense, but also oddly comforting. For the next hour, I stayed there completely at his mercy, responding to his touches and teasing him while he focused on his game. He'd occasionally reach down to play with me, tug at my hair, or give my thigh a squeeze, especially when he lost a match. And then, after enough teasing, he pulled me up for a very heated break from gaming. Let's just say the living room got involved. But what really pushed things to another level was a small accident that turned very interesting. Our dog started going wild in the kitchen, and one of his teammates joked that I should go check it out. Without thinking, he casually said, "She can't right now, she's kind of tied up." Then I couldn't help but call out from under the desk, literally. The moment of silence on the headset was followed by a burst of laughter and a lot of questions. I couldn't hear everything they said, but I was mortified, and somehow weirdly turned on. After that, he didn't even bother muting his mic anymore, which only added to the thrill. The rest of the night was a blur of teasing, laughter, and intense connection. By the end of it, I was back in bed, hands bound, completely spent, and grinning like a fool. Honestly, 10 out of 10 night. Story 15. A few months ago, I went out for drinks with someone I'd been casually talking to. Nothing too serious, just a night out to meet in person, see if the connection felt real. We ended up chatting for hours. The kind of conversation that flows easily, where time slips by without you realizing it. When it was time to head out, he walked me to my car. One thing led to another, and we started kissing, slow at first, then more intense. He gently led me up a small hill next to the lot, where we found a spot near a fence. The night was cool, the street light above us casting this cinematic kind of glow. The whole moment felt surreal, like stepping into a scene you didn't know you were starring in. Things escalated quickly. There was this shared energy between us, spontaneous, wild, and way past the point of overthinking. We were completely visible from the road, which only added to the adrenaline. It felt reckless, but also exhilarating. At one point, I glanced up and locked eyes with someone walking to their car. But instead of panicking, I just smiled. That moment, being seen, being uninhibited, added a whole other layer to the experience. Afterward, we laughed, kissed, and he helped me back to my car like the whole thing had been some kind of fever dream. And honestly, it kind of was. Some nights just blur into memory like that, unplanned, impulsive, and completely unforgettable.